Welcome back to another episode of TradesTalk. I've got a special guest, two special guests today in the studio. We have Mark and John Stevens from Stevens Landscape Professionals. You guys, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's exciting.
Yeah, and you guys have been in the press lately, graced Lawn and Landscape. I mean, big show there. First off, how has that done for you guys? Just getting a little bit of coverage and, culture wise, stuff like that. How's that been, John?
That's good. I think it's pretty cool for people to dig into our backstory a little bit more, especially locally. Having shared that around social media, a lot of people got to kind of read into our background and where we came from and where we are now. I know a lot of people locally have visually seen that just with like the amount of trucks out in the road and stuff like that, but they don't always know the backstory. They might not even know us and that we're brothers and that kind of thing. So it's been really cool to see that. And other people in the industry have been reaching out and really liking to read into that article and kind of understand where we came from. And it's cool to have that shared out there.
Yeah. I mean, I read the article. I was blown away at what you guys built and some of the uniqueness of your projects. John, or Mark, let's go to Mark real quick. Mark, what about you? I mean, how did all this come to you about you guys getting involved with Lawn and Landscape and getting this cover piece?
Yeah, it's funny. Actually, during one of our annual planning events, we talked about trying to get a little bit more time in the press and, get out of our local market so that we could kind of be a little bit more well-known, outside of our local market, trying to kind of drive talent to us, et cetera. And so we had reached out to Lawn and Landscape probably like 2 years ago, asked them if they, had an open article that they wanted to, feature us on. They didn't. And they circled back almost about a full year later. And then we ended up doing the article with them, which was a great experience.
And they showed up to grab some pictures of us. And the photographer's like, "Hey, it's pretty cool. You guys will be on the cover." We're like, "What?"
Yeah.
Yeah, no way.
No idea. So yeah, it definitely, that was the icing on the cake. I mean, it's just cool to be in there, but to kind of have a cover picture is, it's just a wild reflection of where we've been, and to have that is kind of very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So for everyone listening, if you want, it's Lawn and Landscape Magazine, January 2025 issue called Luxury on the Lake. And it's a great piece. You guys, your branding is spot on. I love the black trucks. I love the logo. Where'd you guys come from that? Let's go back to that. Let's go back to the beginning, because you guys started this thing from nothing and you've built up this incredible brand. So let's go back, founding this business, two brothers. How'd that all start?
Yeah, I'll start with that. So back in, honestly, my high school days, my parents were left with a commercial mower, and really just had a chore of mowing the lawn, and really found a passion around, getting some stripes down and making the most of the property outside. And I just really loved being outside doing that kind of stuff. My dad had a tractor, and so we spent a lot of time on that kind of equipment, hands-on, doing it for chores and building a motocross track to rip around on. And so
nice, dude. Yeah. Same here. That's how I learned to drive tractors at 13.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So that cultivated that interest. While we were still in high school, I had a class that required us to kind of make up a fake business and kind of go through some of the motions of kind of building a business in a really accelerated classroom environment. But I said, wait, screw it. Like, I'm like mowing lawns. I'm actually going to make this legit. And so we kind of, I started making up like legit logos. We made up some of the old school flyers. Some of the younger listeners are going to have no idea what these are, but like putting them up where you rip off the tag for the phone number. Literally, that is how we got our first few clients, was putting those around town. And that came out of the classroom, and kind of this early vision of just like, hey, I can mow lawns and actually make money. I like doing that. And so, so I started doing that when I was in high school, and honestly, that snowballed fairly quickly over the first couple years, and that's when I couldn't do it solo. Mark would join me, run trimmer, run mower, and we kind of started to become a little mow and blow operation. And for us, like I want to say our very first account was $400 for the entire season, and this was a lawn that grew like 2 feet every week and had like rocks scattered throughout it. It was like, thinking back, it was a disaster. But thinking also back about our mentality, it was like we were so stoked. It was like the best thing ever. We're getting some money. We're using the mowers we like to use. So we just carried the rhythm of that passion, and kind of kept rolling. And we hit a crossroads about 2 or 3 years in of whether I was going to go off to college or not, and just kind of like, hey, I'll just keep mowing lawns. Like this is working out. And Mark was a couple years behind me. We're about 2 years age difference. And so I ended up determining that I should go off to college. Fortunately, we had a horticulture kind of trade school that unfortunately is no longer in business, but we can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
So I did that for 2 years with an add-on, and so that's where Mark really stepped up. I would say he's not cut
Yeah.
out for school. He did all right in high school. He knew for a long time he wasn't going to college, but this kid's a sponge. He learns by doing and talking to people. And so he kind of just picked up the business while I went off to college, and kept it going. And so shortly after getting done with college, I brought him in as an actual business partner. And that's when we really kind of set the foundation of like, hey, this can be a company. This isn't just a fun summer job. This can be a company. We can really do something with this.
And John, was that time away from the business at college and then coming back, was that the opportunity you had to realize you had something here beyond just maybe a summer job from high school?
Yeah, I think getting put into a college setting and learning about things, it definitely drove a lot more engaged learning, and especially because I could start to apply what I was learning instantly, right? I could go home on the weekends and discuss with Mark, or apply a change into this little operation that we were. And so it definitely went to show that, that education level, definitely in the early stages, definitely started to kind of give us the framework of like, hey, we can make this into a legitimate career. We can do this. And not that we ever doubted it. Honestly, we kind of just continued to put our heads down. But what it did let us do is maybe come up for some air and dive back in with like a better mindset, or a more structured mindset of how we need to do things. And what we were doing back then is just like so dramatically different than what we're doing today. And so that's kind of what makes the involvement of our story, I know, unique. And I know a lot of people have gone through growing a business, especially, a truck and a trailer concept into something. But that it's a unique way to look back and see kind of the different things that we had plugged in and did to get where we are. And let me tell you, a lot of those are also mistakes, and probably
Yeah.
the biggest learning is not the classroom. It was definitely the mistakes we made.
Yeah, that's the best teacher, honestly, at the end of the day, is making mistakes and learning. So Mark, want to go to you through this process. John's off at college doing his training and everything else. You're kind of holding the business down. What was going through your mind at that point? Was it for sure your career, or were you just kind of getting through every day and every week? I mean, we're pretty young at this age. I was in a similar spot as you guys. I started working at 16 full time, so I know that mindset. But yeah, tell us a little bit about what's going through your mind at that point, Mark.
Yeah, it was probably 10th I think it was about 10th grade when my brother went off to college. We graduated 3 years apart. So I was entering 10th grade and, it was just me and one of my high school friends that basically after school, we decided after 10th grade, we weren't going to play sports. We enjoyed, working with our hands, being outside. And so we kind of just, after school was when we went and we mowed the lawns. We did those things, because our season continues on past just the summer season. And we did that for all 3 years while John was gone. During the summer when John would come home, he'd obviously be working in the business with us. And then, after the school season started and even through winter season plowing, we did a little bit of plowing even while I was in high school. So kind of just, held the pieces together. It was very small, just some friends, and, made the most of it. Made the most of it for sure.
Did you know it was going to be a career? That's a good question you asked because I don't know that I've actually asked where his head was at that point.
I would say
he had an option.
11th grade, no. Senior year, yeah. I mean, I wasn't doing the essays to apply for colleges or any of that. It was, hey, how quickly can I get out of the classroom and get out and start making some money and working with my hands? Truthfully, some of my favorite classes were financial classes in high school. And I think, those taught me a lot about the financial world and numbers and stuff like that. And then I kind of realized, hey, I like kind of being my own boss and working for myself. And, like John said, I'm a sponge. I make mistakes, but I learn from them. I speak with other people that are very knowledgeable and try to soak up as much as possible. So I figured I had to do something right. I definitely wasn't going to be going to college. So I had to figure it out. And, I think also having the business similar to John in high school made me realize like, hey, these are the classes I really need to focus on that are going to potentially help me in business. And that kind of helped pull me through my final couple of years of high school as well.
Yeah. I mean, whatever high school you guys went to, props to them because they're teaching you guys business accelerator classes, finance classes. I mean, that's pretty unique. Where are you guys from for the listeners who don't know?
Yeah, we went to a school in let's call it, we're in the Lakes region of New Hampshire, which is like dead center of New Hampshire. And we went to a school called Moultonborough Academy. It is an academy, but it is a public school. But yeah, great school system.
Yeah. Curriculum has changed in time, but back then,
Right.
They had some good core classes that you could make of it what you wanted.
Core classes and core teachers that John and I are the youngest out of 5. So our family had brothers and sisters had gone through the school as well, and so we were kind of the babies coming through to the teachers that our sisters and brothers had all had prior. So
they I don't know if that gave us a little bit of a pass to.
I think it gave me a little bit of a pass for sure.
But yeah.
Well, that's pretty awesome. So you guys, all right. So you start this business in high school. You're growing it, and give me a time frame. What is this? This is mid 2000, like 2005, 6, 7 ish.
Yeah, 2007 to 2010. John graduated high school in 2007, and I graduated high school in 2010.
Yeah. Okay. Man, so John, you and I are pretty much probably the exact same age, like 36. My brother's 30. Yeah, my brother's 34. So it's so many similarities to K&D in our business. Pretty amazing. So he actually just went off to start a real estate company, and now he's starting another like specialty irrigation business. So we broke off last year to kind of do our own things, and it's been a fun journey for sure. It's challenging working with your brother, right?
It is. We can definitely touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, little did we know when we, first got into it, but
there's so many pros though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was about 2010. We kind of I got out of college, he was out of high school. We knew it was going to be, all in on this business. And it was 2013 that he officially joined as a partner in the company. And so we had 3 years there, and really grew quite a bit in that time frame. He certainly earned his way into the, for sure. At this point, we kind of consider, you a founder of the business still, whether it was on paper or not. And yeah, and then it comes into discussing, I guess, the market we're in, and probably the concept that we didn't know we were in this market for a long time.
Even though we grew up here,
Yeah,
you know.
we grew
Yeah.
up in Lake New Hampshire, like you said, right in the central New Hampshire, and there's this massive 26-mile long lake that is really home to many people from New England that have a second vacation home, and that is our market. And we didn't know that. We really didn't. In the beginning, and when we grew up, we didn't really spend much time on the lake. We weren't super aware of the scope of where we were, the client base that we had here, and so honestly, mixing in our market to our passion and our drive for, growing this little business was kind of this perfect storm of like, wow, like we really could not have like grown up in a better market for the industry that we picked. So,
Yeah.
it's quite amazing. And I'm sure you have, I would say like Lake Tahoe might be kind of a similar West Coast industry, or market, to this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
There's definitely a lot of high end res out here, but at least where I'm at, we have the ocean, but we don't have, I've got Pebble Beach in our market and stuff like that where we have these huge mansions, but we don't necessarily have this, lakefront aspect. And I follow you guys on social media and seen some of your videos. And Mark, I think you said something about like we were doing pilings, in winter. Like there's so much to what you guys do that is beyond the normal landscaper. And I really want to get to that. And I got a note to bring that up. But what I want to get to next is what was that turning point where you guys said, look, this isn't just a small mow, blow, and go business. We're going to go into really building infrastructure and serving this high end client. What year was that, and when did you guys start to bring the vision into place that you guys have today?
It's probably 2015
yeah,
when we first got our first kind of shop location, not the small office that we had, but the secondary after that. I think at that point we were committed to really growing this business.
yeah. Even 2013, when Mark became a business partner, two minds, although very different personalities and different, attack approaches to things. We spent a lot of time collectively discussing how we were going to do business. And, at that point and right through, honestly, 2015 and into maybe 2016, 17, the focus was very close to the operation. We weren't really pulling back and looking major picture. We were just trying to dial in, like, how can we get ourselves out of the field? How can we get some employees? How can we, get the right equipment for those employees? How do we start building some basic systems for them, and repeat kind of what we were doing? And how can we kind of maintain like that DNA that we originally started with that made us kind of successful with our clients and our staff and things like that. And so we're really kind of like right in the weeds working on solving those problems. But in 2013, when we're both now owners of this company, I think that ultimately was the turning point of like where we started to put our heads together. And that was also the point at which we realized, shit, we got to figure out how to work together as brothers. Like we grew up like, boxing each other, in front of our family for like entertainment. Like sometimes that would go, and like now we're like talking money and solving like legitimate career, defining issues. And so I think actually 2013 to 2015 was probably a lot of that time was spent like, hey, we have like the same vision. We want to get to the same solution. I come from this angle. You come from this angle. And he mentioned he's financially, literate and really likes that side of it. I don't. I like, the construction, the people, and a little bit more of a visionary side. So it is a perfect kind of relationship to get there using both sides. But we had to know how to communicate with each other different from, just playing video games with one another. And so that was one of our biggest hurdles early on, for sure. I mean, we went through countless meetings where we sat down and like, are we going to keep doing this? Is this like, we're like, he's done, I'm done. Like but at the end of the day, it always came down to like, no, we're committed. Like, we know we can do this. We know we can overcome this. There's going to be bumps in the road. So yeah, 2013 to 2015 in general, those couple years really defined the fact that we could work together. And that's honestly probably number one, is like, we found ways to work together and continue to pour our energy into, building this company. But at that time, not a chance did we ever picture it was going to be what it is today. Not even close.
Right.
Yeah, we were just really hoping for a couple employees, $1 million in revenue. Like, we would have been totally satisfied, right?
Yeah.
And I think the other big thing to touch on when we knew it was real too is when we started to separate out, and John really took a hold of all the construction side of the business, and I ended up taking a hold of all the maintenance side of the business. Again, we didn't want to work side by side, head to head the whole time. Knowing that we had different approaches on stuff that kind of ended up fitting both of our buckets pretty well as well.
Yeah, that's one of the solutions to not butting heads is, I'll work on solving these issues, you work on solving those issues, and so we could kind of concurrently make some serious progress doing that, using our strengths in those proper areas.
Yeah. That way you could fight the business instead of each other. And that's what we found too with my brother and I, is like, if we didn't have a really clear focus of what my job was, what his job was, we'd end up just almost arguing over nonsense. And there's so many bigger problems to solve. So you're starting to get employees in the mix. You're starting to grow. And yeah, things are bigger than just you two at this point. 2015, let's just fast going, from 2015 to 2020, you guys scaled pretty rapidly from what I read in the article. So, you guys got up to somewhere around 7-ish million by 2020. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so walk us through that. Now take us into 2020. What's life like? You guys are crushing. You guys are doing, 7 mil plus. I mean, that's an incredible amount of growth. And what does that look like?
I could start with and you asked in the beginning about, the brand that you see online and stuff. And we touched a little bit before we started recording, but like a couple of the key things that we did in 2013 to 2015 that I believe set up some of our revenue growth and success there was defining the fact that we're serious about this, right? We're young, but we're serious. We are going to be branded. We're going to wear the same uniforms. We're going to have consistent trucks. We're going to have a good logo. This original SL logo was 2013.
Yeah.
And we stuck with that, and we added professionals to our name. So we weren't just Stevens Landscaping. We became Stevens Landscaping Professionals. And we were all in and saying, like, we are serious. This is going to be a professional company. I don't care that, we're 21 years old, 22 years old, trying to sell, a $100,000 job to someone. And they're like kind of definitely questioning, scratching their head, like, are these kids for real? But we just powered through those scenarios. And what helped us certainly was establishing that brand and establishing the consistency, the uniforms, requiring that everyone is aligned on looking the same and the trucks looking the same. And then adding that professionals title kind of just, elevated the perception, I believe, of when people looked at, Stevens Landscaping. So
I think,
a couple of things there.
Branding is so undervalued in our industry. And it sounds like, similarly to us, you guys had to do it almost as a necessity. And, when you're 25 years old trying to go in and sell a big residential client, you have to have good brand loyalty. You have to have testimonials. You have to have the trucks that look the same, because you don't have the 40 years of legacy that the other guy does that they can just rely on. So I think that helps our companies grow. But yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Branding's so critical. And you guys have such a nice, elegant look to your trucks and your, if anyone's listening to this, look these guys up online. You'll see their website. It's pretty amazing. So Mark, bring us into this. You guys are branding, you're selling, you're doing maintenance. And so, how did you get the volume from doing $1 million in revenue to get, that 5 million, such a challenging point to get over 5 million in such a short period of time?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly the year. I referred to it in the article, but we had both brought on two key people, which one was Hunter Secord and another gentleman named John Leahy, and they had come in a year apart from each other, I believe.
Yep.
But that's when I was really able to step away from the business a little bit more and start to focus on the business and the growth of the business. And same thing with John. So they ended up becoming our kind of two key players in the business at the very beginning. Since then, Hunter Secord has taken over as director of construction and runs our complete construction division. And then John Leahy runs all of our reoccurring revenue. So our landscape maintenance, property management, and some other small things that we do. I think that was a big turning point for us. At that point, we knew that we had two other very committed people that had been groomed by us. And they were there, with just as much grit as we were, right? They wanted to win just as much as we wanted to win. I think at that point, too, our brand was really starting to take off. It was, as you said, it's a very crisp, clear, clean, brand that was noticeable in the area. And people started to take us seriously.
Quick question on that, too, is like, how big is your market? Are there a lot of other landscapers your size, or you guys kind of like, what does it look like in your market?
Yeah. So I guess in that,
without naming names, I mean,
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. In that time, in the, 2020 time frame, yeah, there was a bunch of other companies that were our size at, $5 to $7 million mark. Really, we had 2 to 3 really big competitors. One that had been, in the industry for probably 20 years plus prior. And they were really the big time, people. And then we had a competitor that also actually mentored us in high school a little bit. That's less than a quarter mile up the road. That, they have both been around for a while, right? And they both were a little bit on the older side compared to us. They were in their 40s. So we were constantly fighting that for sure, right? We were fighting to win over, like you said, the people that just had 30, 40 years of experience and testimonials and all of that. And I think the next big win was our first roughly $100,000 job.
Yeah, I think doing that and starting to dig in on the basics from what we started with. Like, we definitely spent time reflecting on like what made us successful in the beginning when we were just mowing lawns. And it was the level of communication and customer service we were giving, the follow through, honestly, the business basics, right? That people can forget about. And ultimately, we spent a lot of time on the clients that we had and building those relationships. And really, as we started to grow and expand, we're ensuring that, our other staff was focused on, relationships. And so when we kind of really set our mind on that, I think it led to a lot of opportunities, right? So like the first $100,000 job came from a builder relationship that we had with a builder. And those things, you don't realize that how they're going to play out, but I can say that is one of our focuses, and will always be one of our focuses, is just our relationships, because one way or another, they pan out. I also remember we had this like 10 by 10 lawn that was probably 100 steps down to the water to mow. And we would lug the push mower down there. And it was this little cottage. And we're like, what are we doing? But like, the relationship we had with the client was great. Like, we loved them, they loved us. We just kept doing it. And I think 2015, they got up with a builder, tore the whole thing down, and we landed this, for us was a major landscape construction opportunity, and it was ours, and so
we were young then, right? So to get
Wow.
that relationship is really what got us that job at the end of the day.
Exactly. It's definitely a market where and a niche that we're doing relationship sales at this point. We're definitely not doing anything
Transactional.
yeah, not at all.
Yeah. And a lot of your clients, these are second homes for them, right? So they aren't here all day, every day that they could just have landscapers come in and interview to understand. They want to find the right person, and they want you to build something that meets their budget and meets their needs at the same time. So
Yeah.
that's incredible. And it sounds like people have been a big part of your guys' story. It's getting the right people on the bus. And then tell me this. I mean, this is the biggest challenge for landscapers, I think, or any business owner. How did you guys go from running construction and maintenance to having your two key guys take over and run construction and maintenance? How was that handover, and how hard was that?
I'll let you speak on the construction side first.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Maintenance saddle.
This is where we're different. Mark can let go of stuff like that, right? I have a harder time letting go of stuff, but Hunter shadowed me. Hunter really forced his way into, hey, I want to try estimating with you. Hey, I think he had a college requirement where he had to get some internship, points and feedback. And so that summer, he really kind of forced his way into my passenger seat of my truck. And honestly, from that point, we just shadowed, and I was just real about what I was doing, and he was soaking it up and asking questions. And we were open to like letting him learn and try things alongside of what we were doing in that side of the business. And he had worked in the field a little bit, which I think helped gain some experience. And we identified these two guys kind of early on as like, wow, they're these guys could allow us to actually grow this business and remove ourselves. And so we just put in the time with shadowing. We were started to become very transparent with financials and different strategies, and starting to loop them in as to the business workings. And it really felt good to have, more than just us there, providing some feedback and giving some input on that side of things. And I'll also hit on one other thing that sometimes doesn't get enough credit, but we have a do-it-aller office manager. We hired her in like 2014, 15, 16, 15. Yeah. And when she got hired on, it was just kind of like a little bit of bookkeeping. And she has been an absolute rock in our office. And everyone that's listening, if they're running a business, knows they have, they either have to have, or they have that person in the back office that really holds everything together. And while we were focused on, producing business out there and getting it done and everything like that, she was keeping it all together. And it was really amazing to kind of see what she started with and what she's now grown into and handles. And, that's definitely been an important other component to allowing Mark and I to focus on growing other people, Hunter and John Leahy. So,
and what's her name again?
This works.
And what's your office manager's name?
Don O'Neill. No.
Don Charlie.
Don Charlin.
Don Charlie. Yeah. And so I so much appreciate you guys bringing her up, because I think those positions do not get enough credit for what they do. They're not out getting the clients' feedback day in to day out that feeds us. And it is such a critical position. My person is Jessica. She's my cousin as well. And it's been just an incredible journey going from, like, you have to learn these things. And I can't stand when people like will hire newer people today and they're like, hey, can you do this? They go, oh, I didn't go to college for that. I wasn't trained on that. And you kind of laugh and you're like, well, everyone on the leadership team wasn't trained necessarily for anything of what we're doing, but we figure it out. And I think that's what makes great people in business. That's like the A+ player versus the A player is they're
Mm-hmm.
just going to figure it out. They're not going to let the fact that they haven't been trained on something get in their way. That's an incredible part of your guys' story. So all right, let's jump into today because I know a lot of people are interested and have been kind of waiting. How big are you guys today? What's your revenue? What's your employee count? Where are you guys at here at the end of 24, start of 25?
Yeah, so we ended 24 just slightly shy of 20 million, and right around 112 employees, 113 employees.
Nice.
About a 50-50 mix if you break it down from construction to all of our recurring revenue, including snow and stuff like that. This year, goal is to be right around another 22% growth, so 24 million, 23 and a half, 24 million, with about 130 employees.
Nice. That's great size for the employee number you
Yeah,
have.
we're
That's
really,
incredible.
one of our big things is we're working on maturing the business, working on making sure that we have better proven processes in place and different things like that. But at the same time, it's been a fight to keep it below 20% growth, which,
Yeah,
there's just so much
Yeah.
work out there to get that, like, we're not trying to grow at 22% or 20% by any means. It's happening by doing all the basic business things and also having
yeah.
the right people in the right seat.
Double-edged sword. Like we
Mm-hmm.
talked about, it is awesome. We're very lucky to be in this market. The people can afford really high-end landscapes and they want to show up and enjoy their landscape. So they need people that make sure that happens. And you know, I guess the the other side of that sword is we don't have to go out and dig up that business. It's honestly just controlling what we take in at this point. And one of the things we've learned is how to say no. I mean, we very much were yes, 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 yes for a long time. And although, that was great to drive top line revenue, it provided a whole slew of issues that we had to solve for on like, all right, we got this much business. We can get more people. Staffing is something we could touch on. But like now with this many people, like, wow, we really gotta have some good systems in place. And you know, honestly, it wasn't until right around COVID time, 2020, that we actually implemented, like, formally defined a leadership team, which is crazy, and that it
Yeah.
took that. And we formally defined a leadership team. We
Implemented EOS.
implemented EOS, if you're familiar with that.
I
We
am.
implement Aspire, which you obviously, that's how we know each other. Got into Aspire and out of two separate softwares that we were trying to run the business out of. Uh, and funny enough, and I'm not ashamed to say it, we did not job cost. I think we were doing over $10 million in revenue, and we're not job costing.
Each
So
individual job, yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Same
yeah,
same here.
We knew we were making money, but that's it. We didn't know where we were making, where we were losing it. And that's when we decided to look at Aspire.
yeah, yeah.
Dude,
We
that's
we
so
needed.
crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's scary.
We were at our stars are so similar. We were about 10 million in revenue in 2020, and that's when we really went all in on EOS, onboarded Aspire, started job costing, really got the leadership team set up, got our divisional managers set up, and that was key to be able to get to now. Funny enough, our we know Aspire, so our invoiced revenue was just north of 20 million, and our earned revenue was just shy of 20 million last year. So we were like, oh, that 20 million is so elusive, man. I'm sure you guys are going to smash past it this year, but that was, I really wanted that last year in earned revenue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's wild. It's wild to think that you can even get to a $10 million number and be so well. I guess it just shows, right? Like your level of commitment to like making sure things happen and work. But at that point, you really scratch your head at like this. All right, this can't scale much past this without some structure. Like we had no option but to like define a leadership team, ensure that we had a vision of where we're going now. It's like, all right, we've gotten here like without, really much of a plan besides putting our heads down, having great people in place. Now we got to do it strategically. Now we got to make sure we're really thinking about how we're making the choices and growing this thing from here. So it's cool to have that vision and have those systems in place.
Yeah, yeah, and I love your title, John, Chief Visionary Officer. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's how I
Yep.
knew it was EOS.
Yeah, exactly. They have their terminology, that's for sure. Yep.
So so you guys put it in the systems, built Aspire, and were able to scale pretty quickly. You guys mentioned labor and solving that issue. It's a huge issue for most businesses when you're just running, let alone scaling. How have you guys solved that, especially in the field side of things?
Yeah. Mark.
Yeah, so I don't know the exact date. I want to say probably 2014, 2015. We moved into our first commercial shop area that we had bought. It was a multi-unit area, so there was some other tenants in there that we were renting to. And at that point, it was, our town only has 5,000 people in it seasonally, year round. Yeah, or year round, sorry, but seasonally it goes up to like 35,000. So you can imagine the amount of service people that are needed to support that. And so up until like 2013, 2014, it was all friends. Like I said, we had that commercial building, and there was a gentleman from Puerto Rico that was detailing cars. Um, Things had slowed down a little bit for him, and so I asked him. I said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to work for us?" And that was really the start of it. From there, he had brought in a couple friends and family up from Puerto Rico. Um, Fast forward to now, or fast forward a couple of years, it was all referral based, referral based, referral based. And until last year, actually, we have never been to Puerto Rico to do a recruiting trip or anything like that. It was just strictly referral based. We took great care of our employees. They would go back and tell friends and family. And so that's where the majority of our field staff does come from seasonally. We've had people from Puerto Rico come here and relocate and actually buy houses here and have moved their whole families here. Back in 2017, was it Hurricane Maria that hit?
Yeah.
2017, Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico. Is devastating. Many of our employees lost their homes. And at that point, people that were traveling to come work for us for 8 months decided that, hey, now's the time to kind of pick up our belongings and move to New Hampshire. So I can name 1, 2, 3, 4 families that have moved here now and kind of built the American dream. They own their own house. Their kids are in a great school system. They've learned English, and are completely bilingual now. So that, for me, that warms my heart to see that, like, hey, it's not just about John or I. It's about the whole team and what we've been able to provide for our employees. But we really have a strong culture. And I think John can speak to that a little bit, around the people and.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, back to the basics, like I think we are very like just focused on being human in the world of business and like having that side. Again, that's my approach. Mark can be a little bit more black and white, but that's why the two attack angles at solving things kind of make for good decisions and a good outcome. But yeah, we've been very focused on our people. It's really the reason we're here. It's really cool to provide opportunities to local people that otherwise don't have many other opportunities besides learning the trades around here, or maybe are forced to kind of go into the cities to get a job. But really, we live in such a beautiful area to be able to allow people to stay here and have a legitimate career. It's cool to provide that opportunity and to provide a fun culture for them to be a part of. And that's been our focus. And I will say there's definitely challenges to that, right? Like, integrating a bilingual workforce
Yeah.
into what we do is tough, and that. And so when it was Mark and I in the field as the owners and being really hands on, it wasn't so bad. We could start to really carefully work with the integration and the different cultures and be hands on and solve for whatever we needed to solve for. But as we grow and add more faces and the challenges are exponential. And so, trying to build the systems that can support a bilingual workforce is super challenging. Having to also, have 60 to 80 seasonal people just be dropped into the company. We have to find and support them with the housing side of things and transportation. And they ultimately are picking up their stuff, leaving their families for a solid 8 months and settling in here. And so we want to make sure that they feel welcome and have a support system and are able to go get set up with a bank account and all of those kind of things to make them feel like they have a second home here. And it's been cool because it's cool to see the cultures blend and how much unique relationships come out of that. There's a lot of local staff that probably would have never imagined that they would be speaking Spanish, that are really into the different people when they show up, and we just happen to be right in that moment now where while we were on this, a bus just pulled up and dropped off like 25 guys.
Oh my
And
gosh.
staff are like just all excited to kind of see everyone again. So it's become a really fun group to work around. And it is a high pace, high stress environment, as landscaping, especially seasonal landscaping, where we ramp right up and hit the ground running 200 miles an hour in a matter of a couple weeks. It's wild, but it's really our people that hold us together.
So incredible, guys. Congratulations and well done on just making this industry that much better and building you're building an environment for people to be successful in, which is somewhat rare in our industry. And I think we need more of that. So as you guys start to, go into your busy season, we're recording this in the first week of April. Is this the busy season? Are you guys just now thawing out? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's funny. We got a couple late snowstorms, so we just hit transitional point as far as equipment, getting everything wrapped up and cleaned up for us from snow season and over to green season. But yeah, so we kick off orientation this Wednesday and Thursday, and then Friday is the first official day of work. So there's a lot of gearing up that goes into it. Again, like John said, we go from like 50 employees, year round to about 120, 130 seasonally. So as you can imagine, trying to onboard 70 people in the matter of a couple of days is definitely challenging. And there's a lot of work that goes into making sure that's smooth. One thing to hit on too that, John didn't really mention is that it's pretty amazing too. We do have a lot of employees that have returned from Puerto Rico now for 10 plus years.
Wow.
It's a huge commitment. And some of them now have brought in their siblings, not siblings, their sons or daughters. Well, so it's a process, though, for sure. It's the team has felt the stress for sure. We've all been working together, making sure we're dotting our I's, crossing our T's, and that, everything is ready to go for the season, whether it's each truck is set up with all the equipment it needs or, our orientation process is dialed in. There's a lot that goes into it.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I thank you guys for jumping on the podcast. I can tell it's going to be a crazy couple weeks. I'm glad I got you guys right before the craziness starts. Hey, I want to talk a little bit about the horizon. You and I, we have the same goal, 30 by 30. And that was our EOS target we set back in the day. And that's what you guys have set. At least that's maybe you're starting to rethink that now of hitting that sooner, but how'd you come up with this idea of 30 million by 2030, and what does that look like today?
I think when we said it, we were at like 15 million, and
12.
like,
We were at 12.
can we double this thing?
Yeah.
They call it a big, hairy, audacious goal for a reason. I think we put a little bit of, ran the calculator a little bit on it to see if it was possible. And so I think we're very much sticking there. The key to getting there for us is going to be just being extremely diligent on the processes we put in place and the communication that we put in place to keep the entire team together and aligned, rowing in the same direction, if we want to use the US terminology. But like,
Yeah.
it's true. I mean, it's very much true. The decisions we make now, the changes that we try to implement now are going to define whether we can do that. And it's not just hitting the top line, right? Like, obviously there's so much at risk to be efficient when you're talking doing $30 million of revenue with this many people. And, there's just so many facets that have to be thought about. Fortunately, we have that slower off season to try to get some stuff done there and get ready for each season to implement the change and stuff like that. But, people don't love change, especially people that have been with us, which we're very fortunate to have people that have been with us for 10 plus years. I think we have an employee that originally started with us, so like 15 years with us. And the amount of change they've experienced and now continue to have to be okay with the different changes that we're making, that becomes hard. I mean, there's only so much change that some people like to take.
Yeah.
So think about how we roll out our change and do that is super critical. But we have a good outlook. I mean, again, I'd say we're fairly young besides the two of us. Although we don't feel it some days, we've got a pretty young crowd around us, and
A lot of energy.
there's a lot of energy, and we have to control that a little bit. Sometimes too many ideas, things like that. But it's really refreshing to be aligned with, young people that want to be professional and make a career out of this and do better, provide for their families. And, fortunately, we have a market that can support this. There is competition like we talked about, but
most of our competition has also been purchased by private equity recently as well. So we do fight.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, which we both enjoy that. We've set ourselves up to fight against some kind of mentality. We're not giving in. We don't need to give in. I think that we've spoke on this a couple times, but our market is all about relationships, right? And that's what's going to pull us through of, some of these private equity companies coming in. We're really relationship focused.
Yep. If we aren't delivering a exceptional client experience, we aren't doing our job. That's exactly everything we do is to afford our clients more time to enjoy themselves while they're up here.
And you hit on it, Justin, actually a couple of weeks ago. You had a great LinkedIn post about account managers and basically doing, them doing more for less clients. And it's funny because we actually restructured our recurring revenue division and went to it's what we call a pod scenario. So we have better accountability and almost micro businesses inside of our recurring revenue. So we have account manager that's lined up with a supervisor that's lined up with crews, and they work in a specific area. And just trying to really drive a better client experience at the end of the day, And for us, the value to our clients is how much time does it take to manage us, right? This is their second home. Like John said, come up here and they want to enjoy the lake. They don't want to have to be making a phone call of, oh, can you get this done or can you get that done? They want to have one point of contact, and that's what our account managers are. It's that single point of contact for anything they need done on their property.
Yeah. I think our account managers want to do a better job, and they're just left with 80, 90, 100 clients and $2 million book of businesses. And again, private equity, their playbook is very similar to what they approach any industry with. And the one thing about landscaping is we're just so complicated. We're like you guys don't just have landscaping, but you have the snow and you have the lakefront and you have you have to lug a lawnmower down a flight of stairs. Private equity's like, what are you talking about? It's 100 square feet. That should take them 15 minutes. And
Yeah.
so as you guys scale to 30 million and you look at potentially maybe acquiring additional businesses that help with scalability, what is your thought on private equity? You looking to take on some capital to help you grow, or are you guys looking at, hey, we've got a strategic plan to make this happen without outside capital?
Yeah, we don't plan to bring in any outside capital. We have a really strong fractional CFO. I think you actually posted about that a while back as well. But we had brought a fractional CFO on a couple of years ago, who's been with private companies up to public companies. He's been a huge part of our success. We have a strong relationship with our bank. Back when private equity was entering our market, had a good sit down, conversation with our commercial lender and explain to them where we're at and that we don't want to bring private equity in and that we need a strong, strong partner there. Another link, one of your LinkedIn posts, we don't go and buy all our equipment with cash, right, anymore. We used to think, let's just buy that with cash. It feels good, right? Now we have debt and we, good calculated debt. So we really plan to continue head to head with private equity. We think we know the market more than private equity does. We're in a really unique market, as we've touched on a couple times. It's not a cookie cutter, development area by any means, that private equity loves. This is a real unique, challenging market at the end of the day. So, we're financially stable. We do plan to acquire potentially some companies in the future, maybe open up a secondary branch on the, a different side of the lake to help with some travel time. And maybe diversify our portfolio of what we're doing a little bit. We've gotten more into some property management, which has allowed for a little bit more year-round revenue.
Nice.
We potentially would like to get into doing some marine stuff around the lake. So we always keep doors open, for sure.
It's really whatever, a lot of our
what are our clients' needs?
Yeah, a lot of our clients' needs are what we're trying to solve for. We do draw a line of how deeply ingrained we are there, but the diversity of services we provide are really what all the clients are ultimately needing someone for. So why can't it be us, especially if it's outdoor related?
Yeah.
So docks and that side of things, bringing in contractors and tradesmen to do some maintenance on their house systems. The property management side is huge. And obviously, we still have the maintenance services and the construction, the design build side, which is huge. And so we're kind of trying to fully encompass what we can provide to our customers, which then supports our theory of like you said, less customers for our account managers to spend more time with them and get the most out of those people and provide them the absolute best service. And I think that's an approach that will help us fight against the PE world. It actually, I think private equity sits on our opportunity side of things, and it sits on there for a different reason than people may think. Not an opportunity to grab money or bring them in, but an opportunity to soak up revenue that they probably lose because of their mindset or process that they might push forward with. Same on the employee side. Some of these other firms, I think employees are seeing some of the PE change and might not fully enjoy that. And then, we're sitting here, doors open, you're ready to help them out.
Yeah, and I just to comment on that too. I totally agree. It's on our SWOT. It's on our opportunity board, and the opportunity is, for me, it's like I interview a lot of private equity guys, and I love the amount of research they've done on our industry. And from an outside looking in, there's a lot of reasons why this industry makes a lot of sense for them. And so they come in and they bring in pretty amazing playbooks. Their systems, their processes, not all of it, but a lot of it is pretty dang good. And what they, I think, miss is that last mile of execution, where they take it and they either bring in the professionals from McKinsey as CFOs, or they bring in a CEO from the facility management world or manufacturing, or they take the founder, remove them, promote the next level, and then try to get them to run the business with a new playbook. And although I think a lot of the tactical side and strategic side is really valuable, we can learn from it, the implementation is where it fails. And it's not like they have bad ideas. They're just, I think, implemented in a poor manner. And without you, John, you said it earlier, and it's on your website, the human factor. And that's what we have as industry people who have grown up in the industry, and we've bled the landscape world our entire life since high school. No one can fake that. And so we have this opportunity to scale because private equity is showing that scalability is possible. They're showing that organic growth is possible. And they're helping to really drive this narrative that we need to be a more professional industry. And there's a way to do this that's almost like an institutional playbook and an institutional thesis. But you take all that and you consolidate it down into our businesses. And if we can use their playbooks against them with a human element, we're going to win. And they don't like, I talked to a lot of these guys, they need people like us because private equity needs someone to push against. Otherwise, their thesis doesn't work. And so I think the next 5 to 10 years, as the majority of people who have mentored you guys and mentored us over at K&D retire out of the industry, it's our chance to fill the gap of people who want to be treated like humans, who want to work maybe even a little harder, but have a little more impact in the community and be more focused. So I am just so excited about where we're headed, and I welcome it.
Yeah, we got some exciting times ahead of us for sure. Very exciting times ahead of us.
Yep. Yeah, it's gonna be a good journey from here. It has been a good journey, and definitely excited for what the years have ahead of us here.
Well, guys, I can't wait to have you guys back on in a year or two and see that next step of revenue growth and where you guys are at. So as we wrap up today's podcast, which has been one of my favorite episodes by far so far, what is a trade secret you guys would love to share with our listeners? What's something you guys have just learned in your process of growing this business that is, I actually am starting to like to call it the lessons without the scars.
I like it. I got mine. You're going to think about it?
Yeah. I'm not the visionary here, so sometimes I'll reverse engineer it, but
sometimes, like when you get asked a question like this, sometimes people think too deeply about it, and it's like, no, it's really simple. I think one thing that hit home with me, that, hasn't been necessarily in my face as a trade secret, but I had a conversation with a client less than a year ago, and he said, hey, you guys are great, but brought up some challenges with like the different layers that we've added. And he's like, I really just don't want to see you guys lose the DNA that attracted me to you guys originally and how you guys did things. And I love supporting your growth, and it's been great. And so just, you got to be very careful about maintaining that DNA. And so the word DNA has stuck with me as this thing to reflect on and be mindful of every opportunity that you have in making a decision. Is just think about that. Are we going to impact our core DNA? What made us successful when it was just him and I mowing a lawn together? Why did that client really enjoy the process at that point? And why could we grow from that success at that point? And so that core DNA, everyone's DNA is going to be a little bit different on how they do it. We've probably spoken to a lot of ours today. And so I think the trade secret, and really any business secret, is really just being mindful of the DNA that made you successful in the beginning, and never lose sight of that, and make sure that stays ingrained in your company as it gets bigger, and in your people as you add people to the team. So that's my trade secret.
That is deep. All right, Mark, no pressure. You got to follow that up.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know if I really have a trade secret at the end of the day. I'm pretty open just about everything. And honestly, I think one of our biggest trade secrets is our people, though. We put a lot of effort into our people. We empower them to make decisions. You know, we didn't get here by ourselves, and we're not going to continue, you know, where we want to get to by ourselves by any means. And just simple business practices. Again, that ties back to the DNA, but don't lose sight of do what you say you're going to do. Answer the phone when it rings. You know, just simple business practices can go a long way. I know that's not a huge trade secret, but just don't forget about the simple things.
Our staffing source is a little bit of a trade secret, right? We don't have to do H2B.
That's big.
But there's a process with that, right? We have to own the houses to rent to them, and there's a lot that goes along with it. But we're fully committed at this point with it, and it works well, you know, extremely well for us.
Yep.
Well, that speaks to, John, what you said about DNA. Sorry, go ahead.
What was that? I was gonna just ask you what your trade secret is.
Oh, so I have a ton. I have a whiteboard of all these. I'm preparing I'm going to Miami and speaking at an event in 2 weeks. And so I'm working, and it's all about people. So it's very much into this. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned through business is you have to have a vision at all times of where you're going so you can move with speed and move with intentionality. So I love that. I think when you guys came up with that $30 million goal, I bet you noticed a difference of year over year growth and growth in the right direction because you had this awesome vision that everyone can see. And it probably helped the people who moved over from Puerto Rico and come here every year. They know your vision. They know where you're going. They want to be part of it. So they're willing to move literally their entire family into a new country, if you will, where without a vision, if you guys were like, yeah, we just want to grow a nice landscape company, I don't know if that would happen. So for me, it's have a vision that everybody can buy into and talk about it constantly, especially with banks, especially with vendors, especially with subcontractors, and clients, of course, and you get amazing service because they know in 10 years when you guys are not just dominating the market, but dominating the entire region, they want to be able to have a good end with you guys. So I think vision is number one.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
love that. Very true.
You guys, it's been a wonderful episode. I have multiple pages of notes just from all the takeaways I've gotten from you guys. So it's been a great learning experience for me. Thank you. If any of the listeners want to check in or reach out to you guys are both pretty active on LinkedIn. I think that's probably a good spot to check them out. Follow these guys. Follow SLP and Stevenson Landscape Professionals on Instagram. You'll see some pretty cool stuff going down. And guys, if you like the show, please share and subscribe. You know, both John, Mark, thank you guys for your time today. It was a great episode. Have a great rest of your day. Good luck with the season start up here in a couple days.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate you having us on.